Can you describe to me what initially inspired you to participate in this competition?
Yeah, so we're both super invested in AI and machine learning and had experience with it in the past. And so we wanted to use those skills. HackAI was a great way to do that, especially because in Central Ohio, there's not too many opportunities to use AI in like competitions like hackathons. And so, especially with one being so focused on machine learning, we decided to join up with it.
And do you have any fun memories or some memorable moments that you had from the competition?
Yeah, so we actually spent a significant time brainstorming. So in fact we didn't even start coding until like 7 p.m. around that day. So I think the highlight of the whole experience was after the late night grind, just seeing everything come together, and yeah, I think checking things off the whiteboard one by one, and yeah, just seeing our project come together at the end. I think that was the main thing.
Yeah, no, that sounds super rewarding too. Lots of hard work goes into this for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And how did hackathon challenge or improve your technical skills?
I'd say the biggest improvement for technical skills would probably be being able to like learn from each other. So, for example, a member of our team wasn't familiar with the actual structure of how like neural networks work, of which we were inspired by for like one of our parts. We call it the circumplex flood, and it's a bit technical to go into it fully, but like in brief, we like map the motions on an X and Y axis using what's called the circumplex model, mapping valence or positivity and arousal or intensity. And so with that, we essentially did some math and work in order to take the confidence of a simple emotion from our previous AI model and then plug it into this circumplex flood and get out ultimately a complex emotion. So maybe like 0.2 anger, 0.4 calm, and zero point 0.8 sadness isn't those individual emotions, but rather maybe it turns out to be something like regretfulness, right? And that's inspired by the individual neural networks to structure them. And like for example, some people like we were able to learn that throughout the process.
Yeah, no, that sounds super cool. And it's good that you guys were able to work together and work through all these issues. So what were some of your big takeaways from this event?
Yes, I think the main takeaway was to come early or else you'll miss out on the chicken. But no, in all seriousness,
Love it.
I think the biggest takeaway would be to like talk to as many people as possible about your project and knowing where your downfalls are at. I think and for our group, we actually met up with a mentor when we went back to the main hackathon center, and we actually ended up realizing that the main reason we're using both complex and simple emotions was because that would give like more feedback to the user, so they'd have like more to rely off of. But before that, we didn't know why we were using both complex and simple. Actually, we were only going to use complex, but then actually once we realized with the mentor, we like understood why we would use both.
It was like a moment of existential crisis for us because we've been doing it with the simple emotions, and then we realized, wait a minute, why do we need it in the first place? And so by talking it through with the mentor, we were able to essentially like find a valid use case for it, which was, being more explainable, but also it's useful for in the future being able to predict complex emotions before they can fully appear as well.
Okay, I see. This sounds really cool. I'm a marketing major, so all of this is like so foreign to me. So I think it's amazing that you guys are learning so much through all these like competitions and events. And you mentioned a mentor briefly before, but were there any specific other mentors or people that you were using to help you throughout this process?
So I'd say other than the mentor I mentioned, we were pretty self-reliant overall, and I think that's like what we were most proud of over this whole experience.
Yeah, for sure. That sounds super cool. And so, what was the most challenging part of this competition, and how'd you overcome it?
Frankly, the most challenging part was probably finding a good place to work, which is, I mean, obviously a bit ironic with us trying to find this place today.
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, we were looking at like quiet rooms to work in some of the libraries so we could talk to each other, but we got kicked out like 4 times, which is, I mean, that's fair, obviously, because someone else reserved it. But it was like a momentum killer for a while. It's part of the reason why we only started coding at like 7 p.m. But eventually we ended up finding a good place, so it all worked out.
Okay, okay. I'm glad that was at least the most challenging part and not something that could have been so detrimental to your project. And so how did your hackathon project impact your approach to future projects?
So I think the biggest part is like understanding the importance of like the ideation phase of the project. And we actually spent like a big time a chunk of our time on that. And yeah, I think later we found that another approach that we thought would have been better. And just looking through just like looking back at it and realizing um
Like having that ahead of time would have been a lot more helpful.
yeah.
I
So I
see.
think the main thing is just like brainstorming,
Yeah.
like we did.
And then to
Mhm.
add on to that, I definitely agree with brainstorming. But like in the future, I think the biggest problem was that we kind of pigeonhole ourselves into one approach pretty early. And so moving forward, what I think we would do is that when we're brainstorming in the later stage, when you fully researched and understood like the idea and the topic, at that point, not only to come up with new ideas that could work with your current approach, but to come up with new approaches entirely, because now with a greater understanding, you're going to be able to create a much better idea.
Okay, okay, I see. So you guys learned to be a little more open-minded when it came to all your approaches to different things. That's going to be a very helpful skill in the future for sure. So kind of going along with that, what advice would you give to someone who's considering joining their first hackathon in the future?
I'd say that there's like two main pieces of advice. So first of all, it'd be definitely to meet people, and the second one would be to present well. So just start off with meeting people. At the end of the day, this is a pretty short project, and it'll probably end with the event. But like the friends and the people that you'll meet there, will definitely stick. And so I would prioritize that when you can. So like during lunch or dinner for sure. Walk around, meet a bunch of new people. We actually personally, like, we met one of our team members in the morning of. And so that we recommend it as a great way to get to know other people.
Yeah, so it was actually originally only us two, and then when we went there, we realized we might need like more people because the maximum amount was four people. So we just walked around, kept asking people, and during that process, even though we had a lot of no's, we like met a bunch of cool people, and they also had like many cool projects. So it was just nice to like make connections and network. I think that's like a very important thing when you go to things like these.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, I totally agree.
And and that going back to that second part then, which is presenting your project well, I think is so important, especially with hackathons, because the great execution doesn't really mean anything if others can't see it properly. And so I think it's kind of like a three-step process pretty much. Just to like gloss down like the basic level. First of all, you got to quantify the problem really well so that it's very clear what the context is. Then to explain your solution as simply as you can, and then to demonstrate ways that your project can evolve in the future and move forward. Um, and and just like as overall presentation advice, just be interesting because the judges see a lot of projects, so you want to stand up.
Mhm.
For sure, for sure. Okay, thank you for that. That was a very well thought out answer, so I appreciate that. And for your final question, how has the hackathon community influenced your journey after the event?
Yeah, so we really enjoyed our time at the hackathon, and in the future we'll keep doing more because like everyone in the community was really passionate about their projects, and just seeing that made us very motivated to keep working and excel ourselves.
Perfect. Okay, I love it. Is there anything else that you guys would like to add about your experience in hackathon? Anything you want to share?
HackAI was a great time, and I'm glad that Hack Ohio is doing all these events and all that.